And we're back. It's another Transform Your Relationships Live. I am Laura Rubenstein here with the awesome and wonderful Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hello, awesome and wonderful Laura Rubenstein. We have a topic today that is really going to be empowering. If you have,
Literally.
yeah, if you're feeling as though you're in the doldrums or don't have the supreme capacity to rise above your situations, we are going to be encouraging you and inspiring you and giving you some tips today that we've used and we help others with. So it's going to be fun.
It is. I mean, I love this topic of personal power because if you don't, it makes life so much more workable, less dramatic, more fun. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel better about it. It's just so much when you take on your own personal power. So we need to kind of dive in. And like the first thing I was thinking we could talk about is, well, are we even feeling it? What is your current level of personal empowerment right now? Right? How
Yeah.
powerful do you feel?
Yes, and there's no right answer, it's just a little check in. And on my personal page on Facebook, in the header, I actually give a definition of it. And I say this every moment we have the opportunity of choosing our thoughts, words, actions, relationships, and points of view. That's personal power.
Mm-hmm. In every moment, we have the choice of how we view things and what we do about them.
Mm-hmm. And what our self talk is, what we let in, how we set our boundaries, how we enforce our boundaries. These are all things that every human can do. They're healthy things to do. And sometimes we need to go from places where we haven't been living in our personal power. It's not power over anybody, it's deciding that I claim myself. I claim the fact that I deserve to take up space and draw breath on this earth. And therefore, I will choose what I think. And that will lead to choosing new states of emotional well being, of how I feel. It will change our relationships, it will change our thinking. And that's the home of personal power.
And I think too often we have this habit of not taking on our personal power, and instead we're looking to blame or project what we're feeling on somebody else. And it's a shame when we do that because you're taking away your own personal power and you're giving it to whoever you're blaming or projecting it onto. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, you're just like, oh my God, you had such an opportunity. Or you can change it at any time. That's the good thing. So if you find, like, I know if I find myself blaming somebody or feeling like a victim, I give myself a minute for a pity party or 5 minutes, whatever it is, and wanting to blame everybody. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I want to feel better about this situation. I'm the only one who can do that for myself, right? This is awesome. We are awesome. Thanks, Dee. So we but it's about choosing to take the responsibility for
Yeah.
feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes you've been oppressed or you're depressed or you've been in a trench for a while and you're feeling bottomed out. But know that you can just change your thought for a moment. What if I felt better? What if I thought about something differently? What if I just thought about an entirely different topic for 5 minutes? How can I lift myself from where I am to a little better place to be? And we don't have to be miraculous super women and men jumping up and saying, take on the world. We can do it step by step. In fact, that's often wiser because then it's built, it's sustainable, and you learn to do that for yourself. And that's personal power right there, to be able to change your emotional state.
Yeah. And it's okay to feel whatever you feel. We're not saying if you feel hurt or shamed or wanting to blame or angry, that's good to understand your feelings because I really feel your emotions are your soul's way of talking to you. Then it's also telling you to take on your power in a certain way. It's like, okay, so what can you do for yourself? What is it that you want and how can you get yourself there? And yes, if you're being oppressed, there are things that choices you'll have to make with regard to that. But just remaining in the state you are is not going to support you.
Mm-hmm. And the state you are is the starting point. So if you then reflect, okay, what state am I in? And what's causing this? What are my thoughts, my perceptions of what's going on? You know, I had an example in my own life the other day with a person I was working with, and they talk themselves in and out of different places, being really, really angry, and then making assumptions about another person. Well, you realize you did that all within your mind. The other person wasn't involved at all. You did it all. They didn't respond quickly. They don't like me. We make these patterns of assumptions based on our past life. And then we're having a conversation with ourselves, and we're making decisions in the conversation with ourselves. And then we're experiencing the feeling from having the internal conversation. So why not make that internal conversation empowering?
Yes. Yeah, I'm all about avoiding assumptions unless they empower you. Like, I'm just assuming that this is happening for my good, right? You always say that, for what is this good? Always looking for that. But the assumption that somebody's out to get you, or the assumption that somebody did something to you, whatever, or they did something because they are whatever, it's a distraction, really. It's not the truth. Who knows if it's the truth or not? And it may not matter if you're really clear on what you want.
Yeah.
And you can start focusing on yourself, and how do you actually self-soothe? How do you healthily self-soothe? How do you actually get yourself back to a place of that personally power, doing that inside job work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you said a couple of really important things there, is knowing that you can get yourself back from the pitfalls we go into and the rabbit holes we go down, knowing that you have that personal power. And if you don't know how, that you can learn.
Right.
And the other thing is making assumptions. Well, we all know how to spell assume. It makes an ass of you and me, right?
Always.
So let's not be doing that, because that is not helpful. And you don't know other people's motives. So if you live by the things that I've spoken of so often, the 3 must-haves of a healthy adult relationship, if you honestly believe that there should be equality and equity, reciprocity and mutuality, you have to extend that to other humans. Like, they are doing what they're doing because that's who they are. I don't know what they're thinking, but I can ask. I don't have to sit here and go, oh, yeah, they don't like me. They're always on my case. They've never liked me. That's a pity party. If you notice yourself in that, it's not a negative. It's just a state to notice, I am in this conversation where I am making everything go down the tubes in my mind. So why don't I entertain a conversation that is uplifting? Like, maybe they're having a bad time. And I don't mean that you're going to enable them. I'm just talking about your self-talk. Maybe there's something going on with them that I don't know about. Maybe I could ask, what did you mean by that when you said it to me? You can engage in the relationship and learn more. And the possibility is that you could deepen that relationship by asking those questions. But many people who have the whole conversation going on that they're having with themselves, that is taking them down into the rabbit hole, are not feeling comfortable with the communication, not feeling like they either have the right to ask somebody, or they don't know how to ask somebody, or they're with a hijackal. And if you ask them, they're going to go off the deep end and tell you horrible things about yourself. So many of these things happen, but how do you counteract them? And that's what we want to talk about today, is how do you personally empower yourself? And if you're feeling disempowered, how do you become your own lift mechanism? Yes, you can always reach out to other people and get help, but maybe it's the middle of the night. What are you going to do? You're not going to wake your friends up and say, hey, I need help. So let's know how to do it for ourselves.
And I think you're pointing to something that can be done, which is ask yourself, what I call gas pedal questions, not braking questions. So the braking questions are why me? Why does this always happen to me? That's like, why can't I? Why don't I? Why, those are breaks. But the gas is, I wonder how, what can I do to help me go to sleep right now? What can I do to feel more calm in the presence of this? Can I question my assumptions about the other person? Maybe perhaps is a good word. Perhaps it's
Mm-hmm.
not true what I'm just thinking. Question
Mm-hmm.
what you think is the truth. That's bringing you down. Perhaps there's another truth here. So the self-talk you do for yourself could really help, especially get you some sleep tonight or tomorrow, whenever the issue happens.
Yeah, another good question is what if?
What if?
What if this is not the actual thinking of the other person? What if they actually like me? What if they're trying to stimulate a response in me that would deepen our relationship? If you ask questions that have equality in them, so many times, Laura, I'm talking to somebody and they say, I don't know how that person could be that way, particularly about toxic relationships and hijackals, but, I just don't understand. And my answer to them is, you're expecting them to be like you. And every time they're not like you, you're disappointed. But you need to understand that they're not like you. So don't expect them to behave like you. And that's a big piece.
Yeah, I have a really good example. So I was involved in a breakup many, many years ago, and he broke up with me. And I didn't know why. And I was in such a funk because he wouldn't tell me why. And so I was like, I felt like I was, at the effect of this breakup that wasn't, I didn't want, or, every part of my being was like, why won't he tell me what's going on here? And then a therapist said to me, maybe he can't.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, well, I don't have to suffer if he can't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, all of a sudden, the burden of I shifted my whole perspective around it. And that was that what if, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if? And perhaps I will never get it. So if he can't, I don't have to suffer because of that. Why am I suffering? I have to just accept it. And it was me trying to feel like, should I feel bad about myself or, good about myself or something? And the truth of the matter is we can help ourselves feel good about ourselves. And
Well,
we
you bring
can't put that responsibility on anybody else but ourselves.
Well, you bring up a really good point about what I call the closure conversation, because in closure, people have this generalized idea that, well, I've got to get closure. I've got to hear them tell me why. I've got to find out why that happened. And you get all into that when the actual thing that I suggest to people is closure comes from when you start believing your experience and stop looking for answers from theirs.
Thank you. I was
Right.
totally in that space. You're describing exactly where I was. I was like, but I can't figure this out until I get an explanation. I can't move forward. And it was just, and then she just asked that one simple question. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to be screwed because he can't do something. It was like, that was just,
Yeah,
so I needed to take on the closure. Closure happens over here, not over there.
exactly.
And so many people think you have to have a conversation with the other person to have closure. And it's kind of the opposite almost a lot of times, because people think that, they're going to get something. There's like this underlying or subconscious desire to get whatever is that they're seeking, justification or something from someone else. But the truth of the matter is you're the only one who can give yourself that closure, no matter what a person says or doesn't say.
Mm-hmm. And when you do that, that's personal power. Like that other person is having an experience. They don't really have to explain it to you. You're having your own experience. In unhealthy relationships, particularly toxic relationships where you get discarded, it's highly likely you'll never get closure. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm allergic to that idea. But they don't. Part of the creation of chaos and the need to have power over you is to never tell you why, and because then it's all in the air and they have that power. But if you realize that you can have closure on anything at any time, by going internally and saying, what's my experience of this? And how can I manage my experience of it rather than wanting to hear their experience of it? And when you really get into that, whoa, your personal power quotient goes way up. So
And
that's worthwhile.
in fact, when you do get this opportunity, the way I sometimes will, if I'm in that mode and hopefully can get there, of saying, wow, what an opportunity for me to practice my personal power. And so if I really am thinking initially, oh, I need them to do something, what if I didn't need them to do something? Because they're trying to think that they have this hold over me, and there's no hold if I'm not attached to that. If
That's
I'm not
right.
attached to anything with them, boy, there's, they always say in negotiation, the one with the power is the one who's willing to walk away.
Well, that's true. And also, there's a wonderful Arabic quote about the one who is listening is more powerful than the one who is speaking. And so, wanting all that jabber, jabber, jabber from somebody else blanks out the opportunity for you to reflect and say, what's going on for me?
Mm-hmm.
I just feel that sometimes also, if we extrapolate it to another scenario, what if you really, really, really want to write a book and your conversation in your head, if it was my mother who would have said it, she would really want me to write a book, but then she would say, but you probably can't, you know. So I really want you to do it. And I'd feel really validated that I had a daughter who could write a book. But on the other hand, I'm very invested in the moment to tell you that, you probably can't do that because your mind doesn't work like that, or any number of other negatives. So if you have acquired some of that thinking, so that when something you are beckoned by, say, how about this? And you immediately go into a cloud of doubt or couldn't or disempowerment. It's a wonderful moment to ask yourself, where did I get these messages that suggest that's not possible? And who did they come from? Like, you don't ever want to take relationship advice, the relationship with yourself advice, from a dysfunctional human. Right. um,
Bingo. Don't ever take advice from a dysfunctional human. That's interesting. And then taking that a step further, after you identify where it's come from, what to do if you're feeling that, and how you can turn it around to your own benefit, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
okay, now I know it came from mom. She said I probably won't. And now, how many books have you written?
16.
16 books.
My mom and I never had that conversation, because to her, I was just an object of gratification for her. So fortunately, I could do things. And so she counted on me to do things that she could go and tell her friends about. But as an example of what goes on in your mind, these impinging messages from other people, like, writing a book is too much trouble. You'll never get published. You have to find a publisher. You don't have the money. You don't have the time. What's going to happen to your children if you decide to write a book? That's really selfish, isn't it? I mean, you get all this self-talk going on that can totally cause you to have analysis paralysis. Like, okay, obviously that was just stupid. Maybe I'll write a book when I'm 60 and I don't have children. You'll make conclusions like that. So clear the field. Like, what if there were no impinging circumstances? What would I do? And then when you really feel uplifted by the idea of, I can do that, then you will become a problem solver for the pieces that maybe are going to get in the way. But if you take all that self-talk and it brings you to a place that says, oh, I think I'll just sit here for a while and not do anything. Or as Winnie the Pooh says, I just think I'll have a think. Right. Well, you can have a think for a very, very, very long time and not do anything because you're caught in that war between other people's expectations and conditions that they have foisted upon you in your thinking. I mean, that's what the therapeutic process is so useful for. Your hypnosis techniques are so useful for. Whatever the script that's running in there is the one that, if you didn't make it up, then somebody gave it to you, and it requires examination.
And reprogramming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. But to know that you can do that at any time.
yes, all
That's
hypnosis is self-hypnosis. We're constantly giving ourselves messages. So what are the messages you're giving yourself, and can you examine them and see if there's a different message you're willing to? And I like to, a lot of people in hypnosis, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people come see me for weight loss or different things, and it's like they're not exercising right, or they're not eating right, or whatever, and that's according to them. And I said, well, your brain may be very resistant to those things, so add the word willing to it. Are you willing? Yes, I am willing to start choosing salads over steak. So when you say willing, it gives an easier way for your mind to start giving that self-programming to yourself. And it's a muscle. It's a mental muscle, all we're talking about. Because right now, that having a think about it muscle is maybe very exercised. But instead, you could start the muscle with other self-talk, building this other personal power muscle by saying, I'm willing to feel better. I'm willing to take one more step. I'm willing to breathe a little deeper. I mean, doing one good thing for myself today. And that's a great place to start with, when you're feeling disempowered. It's like, oh, I can breathe today. Start acknowledging yourself and working. It's a process. And I love how you say the therapeutic process is a good way to see how you're actually being. It's like you get to look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh, and in a non-judgmental way, get to that non-judgmental state, because you're in a safe space with somebody who's non-judgmental and only there to help you get to this personal power place, right?
And sometimes, we have to start a few steps back. So if right here is, what am I willing to do and take action? Maybe you have to back it up and come to, am I willing to consider that this could be different? Right? Instead of defining the this and all of that, maybe we have to get to the real core. Am I willing to entertain that there could be a different result here? And if the answer is yes, then okay, what different result might I like to have? And then you begin to feel, oh, that'd be good. I would really like that. All right, if that were possible and I chose that, what step could I take? And now we're starting to come up to action. But sometimes we have to back way off. And, certainly that happens in the hypnosis process, but it happens also in the therapeutic process at my end. Maybe it's too much fire to attack the moment, but we go back and find a place where you can actually find momentum in our thought process to just begin to entertain change, and then get some fire around that, and then do the what if, and if that were true, what step might I take? And then all of a sudden something seems possible, and you can engage with the possibility.
Yeah. And when you get to that state of possibility, that is so empowering. It's such an empowering place to be for yourself. It's like, yes, if you're feeling like there's only one way, that's a good indication that you're stuck in this disempowered place, and that there is possibility out there if you can just, like do a little perspective shift, right? And I know you've got a new community that's helping people emerge empowered. So why don't you tell us about what that is, who's it for, and where we can go for it?
Well, thank you. Yes, today is the day it's officially launching, although we have a few members already, but today it's really kicking off. And that is the emerging empowered community. And it is a safe place off social media to go through the thought processes and the steps that you need to do from being in a relationship, maybe with a parent, a partner, a sibling, an adult child, that is difficult, complicated, uh, maybe toxic, and all the things that you need in there. We have a big discussion group, lots of threads like dating after hijackals, living with a hijackal, leaving a hijackal, having a hijackal parent. So you can engage with other people in those places. I'm in and out of there making comments all the time. But the big thing about the membership is that twice a month you can register for free for my Ask Me Anything group calls. So that gives you an opportunity to interact with me directly without becoming a client. And then you get a 20% discount on all my courses. And you know what, Laura? That's all for the affordable amount of $19 a month.
Wow. Such support for becoming emerging empowered, to feel like you're not alone in this, to know that there are steps to get you to that possibilities place in community, and that if others can do it, you can do it too. It's really needed right now, and it's almost like people don't get that it's needed. They're craving something, and this seems like it. Like the community, the connection, the support, the freedom, the safety, the safe space to bloom and blossom into that possibility and personal power place that we all, we've all maybe even experienced, but sustaining it, building that muscle. It's kind of like the gym, the empowerment gym, the personal power gym. I love
Well,
it.
where it comes from is that so many times I'm interviewed and people say, well, should I just leave if I'm in these places? It's terrible. It's awful. I don't have any money. I just want to get out of here. And I say, unless there's physical or sexual abuse, stay, let's work together so that you can be emerging empowered, so that when you do leave, you are whole and healthy, and you have got your personal power back. You've changed your perspective. So being part of the emerging empowered community is to lead you to that place where you don't leave in a mess. Yes, sometimes you have to because there's physical or sexual abuse. But if you don't have to, you don't want to leave and then heal. You want to do everything that you can in the healing process before you leave, because then you will be emerging empowered. You will know what you're going to do. You will know how you're going to do it. You may have even done it. And then you're feeling much better about yourself. So the impetus for creating this community is to help people be emerging empowered from these dysfunctional, toxic relationships.
Well, as Ani says, God bless you more.
Thank you, Ani. Yeah, it's very exciting. And the conversations that are already happening there are stellar, because, of course, you want someone to talk to who knows exactly what you're going through, because they're going through it too.
Yes. So emerge empowered today at joinintoday.com with Dr. Rhoberta and the community. I love it that it's a safe place, and it's only $19 a month, right?
That's right.
Wow.
So come on down, joinintoday.com.
Join in today. That's a great one. All right. Any final thoughts you want to leave our viewers with today?
Be a possibility thinker. When you find your thoughts spiraling downwards, say, oh, let's invert this. What could it be? And climb out of the rabbit hole and see the light of day.
Yeah. And know if you're struggling with something, it's a good thing, because somewhere in you wants that light, wants that possibilities, wants that personal take on that personal power. You're actually fighting for it. So you got this. We've got support for you. And we'll talk to you next time, a couple weeks from today.
Yes. Thanks, Laura. And everybody have a wonderful 2 weeks.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.